Welcome to the Weekly Workplace Podcast, your hub for leveling up your workplace skills with a journey to success that's anything but boring. Get ready to ditch the dull and dive into the dynamic. Imagine high fives and fist bumps for triumphing over frontline challenges and confetti cannons for nailing your leadership goals. Our episodes feature interviews with industry game changers, spicy tips from trailblazing pros, and mind-blowing techniques to turn you into the office superhero you were meant to be. So, whether you're rocking the cubicle life or leading from the corner office, grab your cape and get ready to soar to new heights with the Weekly Workplace.
Welcome to your Weekly Workplace, where professionals come to find insights and inspiration for success. With you again today, hello!
Hello, everybody!
All the working geniuses.
Hey,
Yes.
we're in the house.
That's right. We are representing.
Oh, we are. Are you all as excited to do these deep dives into each genius as I am?
Yes.
Well, I am, but I guess I'm first up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Lucky you.
Yeah, lucky me.
Leaders go first.
Leaders go first.
That's right. So tell me, before we jump into all of that, and if you were with us on the last episode, you heard we were going to kind of break out each of these geniuses. We gave you the big picture overview the last episode. So if you haven't listened, go back and listen to that on what we're talking about here. But the 6 types of working genius, relatively new assessment out on the market, 20% personality, 80% productivity tool, really meant to help improve team performance and to help individuals on that team find their true joy, energy, and fulfillment in the things that they do every day. So that was a big summary of it.
Yeah.
But go back and listen to the episode. So today, the very first genius we talked about last week was the genius of wonder.
Mm-hmm.
And our fearless leader here has that genius.
I do. That would be me.
So tell me a little bit before we dive back into it. How do you describe, beyond just the definition that we give through 6 types of working genius, right? How would you say you describe that genius as having it?
Well, because I have the genius of wonder, this could be kind of a meandering kind of definition here. To me, it is all about asking questions. It's all about pushing the boundaries. It's all about thinking of new ways of looking at old problems. How do we, ask a question that maybe change our thinking about something, or what piece of data might really help us understand something a little bit more, and then how do we use that in some way? So to me, it's all about asking questions, and visioning and strategically thinking about things is how I would kind of describe it for myself.
Mm-hmm. Now, Ray, you have worked with Dewey for a long time, longer than I've had the pleasure of working with him. Did it surprise you at all that he had wonder?
No.
I've been doing this ever since I was a little kid, right?
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
I even in school, I was always fascinated by things, especially science classes and things like that. Really, I wanted to get in there and find out, why does this work this way, or dissecting a frog. I was like, yeah, let's get in here and figure out what's going on, and that kind of stuff. So, I've always, even in nature, I grew up on a farm, and so, I was always wondering about nature and how it all fits together, and that kind of thing. So
And that's interesting, because being a former school teacher, but also, of course, being a student, that's not how our systems are set up.
No.
Mm-mm.
You do what I say as the teacher, right? And you do it like this, and you, And so
there was times when I would kind of struggle a little bit, because I wanted to explore, I wanted to learn, I wanted to ask questions and that kind of stuff. And you're right, sometimes you'd get tapped down. Just do it this way.
Or did you get caught being like a daydreamer? Did they think you weren't doing anything?
Sometimes, sometimes people. I even still get that today, I'm sure a couple of you are like, wonder what he does in his office all day long.
He's wondering.
I'm
That's
wondering. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing.
It's funny you mentioned that, because we have one of our other colleagues here in MU Extension that also has a genius of wonder. And I walked to his office one day, doors closed, and he's sitting back with his feet up on the
just like
table.
you do.
Just like I do.
And he's just sitting there, and he's just looking, and I was like, hey, can I come in? And he's like, yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking. And I was like, what?
Yeah, that'd be me.
Yeah.
So let me tell you, you're actually kind of spot on. And Ray, I appreciate you bringing that up, because when we talk about this genius of wonder, I want folks to recognize that this and invention are the 2 least percentages of the population that are represented by these two geniuses. So this whole space, and you mentioned last week, we talked about this being the process of ideation. Like, it is not common for our society. And this is as of December of last year when I went through the certification. About 664,000 assessment results had gone into this, but 13%, only 13% of the people who have taken the assessment so far actually have the genius of wonder. You're unique, Dewey.
Well, yeah, I guess. I guess when I hear something like that, though, I also wonder. There I am. I'm wondering again, just how busy life is nowadays.
Yeah,
and do we even
point.
have the time to sit and think anymore? Because I don't know about you, but my to-do list just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And so I sometimes have to put that away intentionally just so I can get into this space once in a while.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't know if that has anything to do with that statistic or not, but.
Well, do we appreciate it as much as we should?
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think very vividly, and I was telling you all this before we went on the air, but there are times, and when we started planning for NELD, for example, I can remember getting in there and I was like coming to the meetings. Now, mind you, I'm not a person who really likes meetings, but our team is awesome. So I enjoy our team meetings. But we kept kind of like, you and I were at almost a tension because you were like talking big picture about these things and wanting to really just think through every piece of this. And I'm like, what are we going to do? Let's do this. All right, how do we move forward on that? And so this was really enlightening when we got this kind of vocabulary for personally, for me to be able to sit and recognize and to appreciate and honor that space, because you're right. We are so inclined as a society to just get to work.
Well, deadline,
Yeah.
right? And so when do we kind of take a breath and, because sometimes I think we do things just because we've always been doing them.
Mm-hmm.
And, to me, that's not a good enough reason.
Yeah.
Why are we doing things? So asking those questions, wondering if there's a new way of doing something, new way of looking at something.
Yes. Yes. And I love that you keep going back to that asking questions component, because that is a critical piece as we think through this particular genius. Is they are our geniuses of wonder are constantly asking the questions. They're constantly thinking big picture, a lot of thought process. But I have a question for you. You think about what you need to be able to fully operate and to function in that space of wonder. Like, what do you say you would crave to be able to do that?
I crave information. I crave other people's ideas. I crave other perspectives. I crave data. I crave the ability just to sit and talk to somebody about something. And sometimes that kind of can go on way too long. Alan, our old boss, Alan, I think he probably had a little bit of this in his makeup as well. He's never taken it, but I would suspect that. But I remember times sitting in his office and we'd be there for hours and hours and just kind of debating for fun back and forth with each other, just trying to, well, if you thought about this, well, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
And so we would spend lots of time doing that. Yeah.
You guys were both greens too, weren't you?
Green is my second
right.
color, and it's his first. Yeah.
Okay. So what I love, we talked about this on our last episode too, and I got one other question I'm coming back to you on that, but this idea that this particular assessment, and when we took it, we all kind of agree that it overlaps with a lot of what we've taken in others. So we're talking about greens here. That's the true colors assessment. And so you'll see that overlap through this particular assessment, 6 types of working genius, and how it kind of, it should, right? We don't want to have any surprises there. Right. Correlate with what you kind of already know about your personality if you've taken other personality assessments. And so you mentioned kind of what you crave, and I hear that a lot from our geniuses of wonder, like big picture, kind of just consideration. Like, give me that time and space to be able to process into this is valued. This is valued time. What are you crushed by?
Deadlines. Not having enough time. That's okay. Not having enough time to think about things. I get crushed when I feel really rushed to make a decision on things. Other things I'm crushed by. Bad information. That really kind of puts up. I'm gumming along. I'm thinking, I'm doing some research here. I think I kind of know what we're looking at here, and then I realize, that's not going to work. It's based on bad information or misinformation and that kind of thing. So
I hear a lot. lot, and let me ask you your thoughts on this, that our geniuses of wonder often say like they're crushed by this idea of like, who cares? Right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel that sentiment or?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes. I also, though, think I just haven't done a good enough job of describing the benefit sometimes when people say that. Who cares? Well, maybe I haven't done my job in thinking it through to kind of understand what those benefits could be if we would go down this pathway.
Ray, what's coming up for you as we're talking through Dewey's genius of wonder? Anything as your
I mean, we always compliment each other, but I think like how soul crushing some of I mean, when you like wonder is a frustration for me.
Yeah.
And so then to not give space to that, right? And I don't know if I always do it externally, right? But sometimes internally. But I'll never forget years and years ago, we were in Washington, D.C. and we were getting certified for Clifton Strengths. And Dewey and I were there for a week and at our tables, and we had to share, like, just pick one of your,
top five
talents, and then just talk about like what that looks like for you. And he picked connectedness. And I remember, of course, I don't remember the details. I just remember the feeling I got after he told the story. So I couldn't retell the story. He had to remind me. But the idea when he talked about connectedness, and to me, this is how his wonder manifests, right? He says, I can look at a table. And he said, most people see a table, they see a platform to write or whatever. And he was like, I see the sunshine and the water and the soil and the nutrients and all of the things that went in to
making the wood.
Yeah. And I get goosebumps just telling you the story because I was just remember like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I see the workers that fashion this together, and I see, all the little pieces of it. And somebody had to design it first before it kind of comes into reality. So, that is how I look at the life.
Well, that's a lot.
It is.
Like, that's a lot.
I know.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, though.
Right.
Like, it's certainly
a genius,
beautiful.
and sometimes when does it bite us? Right?
Yeah.
When do we?
Well, and what's interesting, you mentioned earlier, and I appreciate your vulnerability and saying, thinking about it being a frustration for you. It's a frustration on my Working Genius report as well. Wonder is a frustration for me too. And there's been times now since we've gone through this as a team and we've been able to sit and talk, and we do that with every assessment we take, but to sit and to share our results and talk about what it looks like. And there are very poignant moments I can think of that, like, I personally did not honor that beautiful genius of wonder as much as I now really understand and value it. And so thank you for being you, Dewey.
Oh, you're welcome. And let me just say, though, that goes both ways, right? With your geniuses, I bet I have soul crushed you a couple times because, it's not mine. So, it does go both ways. Yeah.
That beautiful picture of what this particular assessment can do for our teams. Again, just a common ground, common understanding, respecting, honoring.
And tapping into the different strengths that your team brings. Yeah.
Yes. So tell me, I'm thinking like, again, there's so much to this genius of wonder, but can you describe how this genius of wonder has really kind of led to maybe like a significant breakthrough or innovation for you? Like how...
Well, I would have to, the thing that pops right into my head for that is the soup series. I was the original author of the soup series. And of course, this is way back in the day, way before you both, I think, were on board. And we were doing a lot of research in the areas of those of populations, and we take a look at the who's leaving the workforce, who's coming into the workforce. And we kind of stumbled upon this idea that people get promoted into a role of supervision just because they're good at that frontline job. And so I was like, wow, but I was promoted into supervision for the same reasons, but nobody ever taught me how to be a supervisor. So it was a lot through trial and error. And so it was from that wonder that I doing that research for a need I guess. I was looking at that individual need, and that was the impetus that really started the supervisory series. And, when I first put it together, it was 10 sessions, 10 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. And we covered a lot more kind of ground on here. But of course, that was my wonder, wanting to think about this and how does that fit? And, add this and add that. And now, it's gone through so many different iterations over the years. I really like where it's at now. We've got it down to the essence of what that program really needs to be. But that all started because
Well, stay tuned.
yeah. But that all started because I uncovered that need. There was just a little need there that just opened up a door for me to explore even further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really created not just our path forward, but a legacy for us.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely one of our most well-known and most requested pieces. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Absolutely. Tell me about, because I can imagine like there's so many benefits to this, but in your experience, and you talked a little bit earlier about the childhood experiences too, like what challenges have you ever experienced or barriers even with having kind of the genius of wonder, and how do you overcome that?
A lot of time alone.
Okay.
Yeah. I do think about, like Ray said earlier, sometimes, we're such busy people so that in school, we had certain deadlines and do it this way. And this is the process you're taught. Think about how I learned math, you got to follow a bunch of rules. And that would always kind of crush me once in a while, because I was like, well, does 1 and 1 always have to equal 2? Couldn't there be another opportunity here somehow? And so that when that happens, I kind of feel like I kind of get into myself a little bit. I kind of become a little bit more introverted. And again, my brain is just probably just thinking. I just need that time to think.
Okay.
I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
yeah, I think it certainly did. It's just understanding that challenge and then how you kind of are overcoming it. What can we do as teammates? Like I'm just sitting here thinking of some of the conversations just to be able to honor and respect and really leverage the opportunities that come with having that genius of wonder.
I would encourage you all just to participate in asking more questions, help me think what could be some good questions that we should ask about a particular topic. I think that could be helpful, and then maybe just a little bit of time once in a while where I can be in my office and close the door and think, things like that.
Yeah. There's moments like I get scared, and this is what there's a regulation component to this. So we'll talk about that in a second, because I get scared because it's like you've been in there a while and you're quiet, and I'm like, oh, is Dewey okay? So I'll go in and I'll like, hey, how's it going? Realizing I'm probably interrupting that space of wonder
a little
for
bit.
you.
No, I always enjoy that, because sometimes when I have those interruptions, it's because we got a question. And, or we need to talk about something. And so I enjoy that part, right? And what do you think about it? And, which direction do you think we should go? And what other things would impact this particular thing that we're about to do? So sometimes those are great moments where you and I can kind of come together and kind of wonder together once in a while.
And I'm so bad at it. I remember.
Well, it's just because you want to move on things, right? You want to get things, cross them off the list. Yeah.
Well, and I've learned, like, let Dewey engage with the material or whatever, the comment, the question, the statement, whatever. I have learned, like, wait, because there's going to be something good that's going to come from, maybe it's another question, maybe, and just, so I always have learned, just wait, let Dewey go first.
I'll say that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll say this too, because sometimes I ramble. And I think sometimes people have a hard time following my logic once in a while. It's there. I know that it's hard sometimes to weave with me and around my thinking processes, but sometimes, you just kind of wait till the end. And it usually comes out in the end, right? But I have to kind of wonder about things as I'm speaking sometimes. So.
Yeah. I know there's so much there. No, I told you, and I was mentioning again before we went on the air too. I remember a very vivid moment where, and if you were with us last episode, we talked a little bit about how this assessment helps in the space of like guilt and judgment too. And I remember I was maybe 6 months into the job. We were prepping for our first National Extension Leadership Development Program, and you and Ray, and we'll talk about Ray's leading genius here too on this next episode. But you had us do this wonder activity is what I'm going to call it, where we had to sit with sticky notes and just think through as many things as we could possibly think of for the different programming points on this. And I remember sitting there and just feeling an immense amount of guilt that I was not smart enough to be in there because I could not like pull it out of me. And in now 6 years, almost 6 years that we've been together, I really can sit and I can see how you work through things. And so to your point, the questions and letting the pausing and the processing, if we stop and are intentional, and I want to encourage anybody who's working at trying to understand their maybe working genius frustrations a little bit more, watch the people who lead with it and emulate some of those things, because like we're trying to reduce guilt and reduce that shame and those components by understanding these geniuses better. And so I'm so grateful that I have you to be able to look to understand how to do that better. And it'll never be a genius for me, but I can contribute now. Whereas back then I didn't think I really didn't think I could. And so being intentional is so important there.
Yeah. Because I think you can channel it. That's what I call it, like channel my inner Dewey. You know, like what would he be asking? You know, not what would Ray be asking? Because Ray's not asking nothing. Right. Ray's just doing it. But what would Dewey be asking? How would Dewey be thinking about this? And just kind of trying to like channel that a little bit. So you're right. You know, it's not going to be a genius for me. Right. But I've seen it in action enough. Yeah. And it's powerful enough that, you know, you pick up those things.
Yeah. What other tips would you give, Dewey? So for folks that are maybe listeners who are interested in tapping into the genius of wonder more effectively, what tips would you give?
Read. You know, I think that's information is where it's at, right? And the more that we know, the more that we can innovate, and the more that we can be creative, and the more that we can wonder about the possibilities that are out there. I would also encourage people to, I know that sometimes in life it feels like there's only one solution, that there's only one way of doing something. And I just don't believe that. I think that there's million possibilities are out there. So every time that somebody comes across a problem that they don't think they can change, I'm going to be the one that's going to say, let's think about that a little bit, right? You know, so I would really encourage people to think of opportunities rather than problems. Those would be my top two probably. But read. Look for information, you know, based on what it is that you're working on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, do you ever struggle? So as I think through that, obviously harnessing it and really tapping into it more effectively is one point. And then kind of the opposite end of the spectrum there. How do you regulate it? How do you
regulate my wonder?
I know, right? Right. But I think specifically we're talking about in like team settings, right? So knowing, you know, we're interested in tapping into that as it's more of a frustration for Ray and I, and we want to learn more about it and honor more of it. But kind of the opposite of that spectrum, and I'm going to ask this of all of us as we talk through our geniuses, but how do you intentionally kind of regulate it in those team environments? Part
of that to me is about milestones, you know? So if we're not hitting a milestone where I think we should be, that sometimes is my fault, right? Because I'm wondering too much. But it's nice to meet some of those milestones. The other things that I sometimes do is I just shut up and let you guys do it. Right. Because sometimes we've talked about it enough where I think everybody has a good understanding of what it is we're trying to create. And then I just try to get out of your way. Because that's, like you said, the process of work, right? It's time to move on to that next wheel, that next stage of the process of work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great advice on that, because that's so important. And I think as we are reflecting, as we go through these next few episodes and all of us have the opportunity, that is a big place when we talk about the value in this assessment and this tool for our team is, again, not only honoring, appreciating, understanding more about people, but then understanding how do we regulate what's so natural to ourselves, and being able to give space and
yeah, because I know I can be frustrating. You know, I'm serious. I know that about myself. You know, I can be very frustrating when because people want to move and I'm not ready to do that yet. Right. And so I know that can be very, very frustrating for folks. We want to, you know, again, our culture is really about getting things done, getting things accomplished. And I know that my approach then with this sense of wonder, I do probably need to regulate it a little more because it can be frustrating for people.
But I look at this beautiful, and I'm going to call it the work marriage between you and Ray, because you guys are, I mean, very, very different. You just mentioned earlier, Ray, that wonder is a frustration for you, but you all have been able to, throughout all of these years together, complement each other so well that, you know, I don't think you even have to be as intentional regulating, because you start understanding, appreciating, just valuing the person behind the genius more.
I can't do what I do without Ray around. You know, she complements everything else that I bring to the table. And that's the key. I think that's the key, is just to recognize. And I'll say this, Ray and I have been working together for a very, very, very long time. And we've had our ups and downs. Yeah. You know, when we first met, you know, just like any other new relationship, we're testing each other. We're going through some issues once in a while. But now I think we have worked through so much together that we really do understand each other's strengths. And more importantly, I rely on her strengths. You know, hopefully she relies on mine too. But that's what we do, you know, and so I can't do with what I do without having her around.
I mean, I just think, like last week when we were all in that meeting and you said, have we? And I just go, yes. Because I know what he's going to say, right? Because I'm like, okay, where is he going? I got to get out there, you know, and it happened to be right that time, but I just,
as you usually are, right? Yeah.
I just, again, like, where is this going to go? I want to anticipate that.
Yeah. And I think that what I value so much about that is that's not just something that happens. Yes, there's a part of, I guess, the osmosis of just being around each other, but there has been intentional understanding and intentional practice of appreciating and honoring how all of us on this team show up, and that creates beautiful things. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, stuff like this, you know, this isn't a one and done. Like, oh, let's all take the assessment. Let's sit down. Let's, you know, powwow, and then get up and like never talk about it again.
Right.
It has to be an ongoing dialogue. And I really encourage my clients, our clients, you know, like pick one.
Yeah.
You know, pick one that you really buy into the philosophy and you know you can support it, and go with it. You know, we have we've got 7, you know, but you can't just lay it down after this.
Right. Got to get back to it over and over and over again.
Yeah. And it has to be that common language that you were talking about.
Bring that common language. And then you become a lot more intentional about using them, right? Yeah. When everybody knows that we're going to talk about them, right? And we're going to use that language in our next meeting, you know, so then people kind of get used to it. Yeah.
Yes. As I'm thinking through this, and, you know, we talk a lot about aligning their geniuses with what you do day in and day out to really bring that sense of joy, fulfillment. How do you do that? Do you feel like you're in alignment with your roles, or has there ever been a time where you've had to like pause and realign or readjust based off of the need to fulfill your wonder?
Yeah, there's been times when I've had to adjust. Absolutely. And I get it because, again, we are so busy people, and we operate within expectations that other people have of us. And so you still have to meet those expectations, right? You still have to be professional. You still have to meet those. But yeah, there's been times when I have had to kind of readjust my thinking a little bit so that it gets more into alignment. And I'll say this, I've quit jobs. I have quit jobs that have not been allowed me the opportunity to think and to be strategic and to just wonder. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you, and Ray, I'm going to throw this one to you. So to bounce off that question, say, and this was the case a while back where you were Dewey's boss back in the banking days, right? Say you have your employee come to you and they've just taken this assessment. They're realizing like, I have this genius of wonder, and like what I'm doing is not aligning here. What do you do as a leader of the team with that information?
That's a really big question.
It is.
Because there's lots of things that you do. I mean, what is this person thinking about their wonder in the job that they're doing, right? And what is it that they're doing that they love doing? What is it that they're doing that they don't so much love what they're doing? I mean, I honestly feel like that happened with you at the bank.
A little bit.
You know, that a position was created. And
that was cool, right? But before that, it was a job. I was okay at
pretty
it.
Regulated,
it's pretty
right?
regulated, and
Yeah.
it's pretty task oriented
Yes.
and that kind of thing. And so when I did get that new job at the bank, a whole new world opened up for me, because it allowed me to think about, how do I create this new training department? What are the things that I need to be thinking about and bringing in to really help these new employees get up to speed as quickly as possible? So that was fun. That was a lot of fun. And I will say this, Ray had a lot to do with getting me that job. She, I think, recognized the genius. I think she recognized the talents. And yeah, she really helped me prep for that interview a lot. Yeah.
he was good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and what I love and appreciate about that is just, again, really, I keep saying it over and over, but it's how do we honor our people and what they're naturally good at? And so in that case, you know, redesigning a role or creating a whole new role, or, you know, having those conversations, even I think about that just in terms
and it could
of,
be something like, you know, just give me a problem to solve.
yes,
Right.
yeah,
It could be like just asking a question. Well, Dewey, what are your thoughts about that? You know, as a way to tap into that sense of wonder for somebody.
Or even like when I think of, if we're so intentional in the meetings, because we know every organization's having meetings, right? There's so many meetings. And so thinking about even how you're restructuring or reorganizing your meetings, and who are you having lead certain portions of the meetings that taps into their genius to honor. So maybe it's not an entire new role, right? Or a new job, but it's just those projects and work processes you're already doing, realigning them that speaks to those natural talents.
Yep. That's why, you know, when we started that NELD program and I brought in that affinity diagram activity, you know, but we needed some place to start, right?
Yeah.
We needed to kind of think about what an end result looks like. And that was that kind of that purpose of that. But you notice I never lead our team meetings. I leave that to Ray, right? Because she's really good at that. And those team meetings, they're more about tenacity for me and tasks and things like that. But Ray is good at that idea of activation and getting things moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good example of how we kind of lean in on each other's geniuses.
Yeah. So let me ask you this as we start wrapping things up here with our genius of wonder, thinking ahead. All right. As we're kind of future focused, our last series was very future focused as well. What do you see as the future potential of wonder in addressing those complex challenges in our field and maybe even beyond our field?
Well, I mean, that's innovation, right? I mean, that's the newest, latest thing is going to be coming from that sense of wonder. You know, I always love this kind of saying. I can't remember who told me this one time, but they said, "Are you selling perfume or are you selling hope?" Because if you're selling perfume, that's one thing, right? But hope, we could sell hope in a whole different way, right? And so what is you're truly trying to achieve, right? And then that's kind of sets that wonder for me. So once I understand what it is we're truly trying to achieve, then I can go out and explore, bring in all the different, you know, information, the different theories, the different, you know, other perspectives into help us achieve what that end result is.
Excellent. Excellent. Any final advice? Let me ask that.
Exploration. That's
Okay.
to me is really about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't get comfortable. There's always something new to learn. There's always something new to see, something new to incorporate, something that we can change how we normally do it.
We're going to continue to lean in on each other's geniuses as we go throughout this series. And so, Dewey, thank you for letting us tap into your genius of wonder this episode. And next week, we're going to pick up with invention. And I think, Miss Ray, you're going to be up to the microphone for that as we start talking a lot about what is this genius? How does it show up? How do we honor it as team members? And so on and so forth. So, tune in to next week's episode and to all of them that follow. If you have any questions or comments, or you're interested in taking that Working Genius assessment, go ahead and send us an email, mti@missouri.edu. And until next time,
go be great.
And that's a wrap, folks. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Weekly Workplace. We hope you've been inspired, equipped, and ready to tackle whatever challenges come your way. But before you go, remember, the journey to success never stops. Keep grinding, keep growing, and keep striving for greatness. And hey, if you want to stay ahead of the game and never miss an episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you thought of today's show. Your feedback fuels our fire. Also, show us some love by liking and sharing this podcast with your friends, colleagues, and fellow go-getters. Together, let's spread the knowledge and empower more professionals to reach their full potential. For even more tools and resources to elevate your career, check out the Missouri Training Institute. So until next time, keep hustling, keep learning, and keep dominating the workplace.